The ink on Julian's dissertation was still damp, but the air in the archives was already shimmering. For 6 years, he had chased the hypersphere reality, a theoretical anomaly where time wasn't a line, but a topographical map. To access it, one didn't need a key. One needed a PhD thesis of such profound synthesis that it balanced the weight of human history against the pull of its potential. The defense. The committee sat like stone gargoyles in the dim light of the Great Hall. Julian's defense was more than an academic exercise. It was a ritual of fulfillment. "You argue that duty is the gravitational constant of the soul?" the dean asked. "I do," Julian replied, his voice steady. "And only when the scholar has paid his debt to the known can he walk into the unknown." As the final signature was pressed onto the vellum, the floor began to curve. The walls of the university dissolved into a translucent, iridescent membrane. Julian had finished his duties to the world of men. The sphere had arrived. The surface of the deep. Now a university professor, Julian stood on the horizon, the literal surface of the earth within the hypersphere. Below the surface, through the crystalline ground, Julian could see the thick, amber-hued tides of past memory. He knelt, watching his own childhood birthday parties and the silent, dusty echoes of the Library of Alexandria swirling beneath his boots. Above the surface, the sky was not blue, but a frantic, glowing tapestry of future possibility. Great silver spires of cities yet unbuilt reached down like stalactites, humming with the electricity of choices not yet made. The professor's lecture. Julian didn't just observe, he taught. He established his lecture hall on the very seam of time. His students were not just young scholars, but echoes of thinkers from the 12th century and pioneers from the 30th. He would reach down into the soil, pulling up a handful of 19th century industrial grit to explain the thermodynamics of the past. Then he would leap into the air, catching a photon stream from the year 4000 to demonstrate the evolution of light. "We are the curators of the now," Julian told his class, his silhouette cast against the glowing gears of the future and the soft shadows of the past. "To understand the hypersphere is to realize that every duty we fulfill in the present builds the ground we stand on tomorrow." He was no longer just a man with a degree, he was the bridge. In the hypersphere, the professor found that the greatest duty of all was not just to remember or to predict, but to exist, fully and vibrantly at the center of it all. As Julian's tenure in the hypersphere lengthened, he realized that the amber tides of the past memory were not merely a static record. They were deep, pressurized layers of reality. While his peers focused on the well-trodden paths of the Roman Empire or the Ming Dynasty, Julian began to deep dive, submerging his consciousness beneath the literal crust of known history. The subsurface descent. Equipped with the analytical rigor of his PhD, Julian used his specialized research to anchor himself. He discovered that history was porous. Beneath the recorded past lay the silent eras, civilizations that had fulfilled their duties so perfectly that they left no scars on the earth, only echoes in the hypersphere. The Lemurian glasskeepers. Deep in the pre-glacial strata, Julian found a civilization that lived in cities of solidified light. They didn't use tools, they used harmonic resonance. Julian realized their duty had been to stabilize the Earth's core through song, a task they completed before fading into the sphere's memory. The chrono-nomads, a group of humans from an alternate Bronze Age who had learned to step sideways out of time. Julian found their encampments nestled in the folds of the 4th century BCE, hidden in the shadows cast by more famous wars. The professor's ethical dilemma discovery brought a new weight of responsibility. As a professor of the hypersphere, Julian had to decide, does an observer change the past? He found that in the hypersphere, the past was protected by the weight of duty. You could visit, you could learn, but you could only touch what you had the intellectual clearance to understand. His thesis, once a mere stack of papers, acted as a spiritual passport. The archive of the unseen Julian began to curate a new wing in his transcendent university, the Department of Forgotten Triumphs. "History," Julian lectured, pointing to a shimmering, submerged spire of a civilization that predated the dinosaurs, "is only what survived the fire. But in the hypersphere, we study the fire itself. We study the people who were so successful, they never needed to be remembered by the world above. By bridging the gap between the future above the surface and these hidden paths below, Julian discovered the ultimate secret of the sphere. The future is not built from the present, but recycled from the perfection of the forgotten past. He wasn't just a teacher anymore. He was the custodian of humanity's entire hidden soul. Julian realized that the hidden eras weren't just populated by humans. As he tunneled through the dense, chronological silt of the hypersphere, he broke into massive, subterranean pockets of memory where the evolutionary tree had branched into brilliant, unexpected directions. The deeper he went, the more the traditional hierarchy of nature dissolved into a series of sophisticated, non-human empires. The great avian republics floating within a pocket of the upper past, Julian found the arrow page. Long before the first primates climbed down from trees, a lineage of raptors had developed a civilization based on the manipulation of wind currents and magnetic ley lines. Technology. They didn't build skyscrapers. They wove cloud anchors, structures made of pressurized air and static electricity. Culture. Their history was recorded in song cycles that could be heard across continents, preserved now in the sphere as shimmering golden vibrations. The reptilian technocracy, far deeper, near the heat of the core, Julian discovered the Saurian engineers. These were not the monsters of cinema, but elegant, cold-blooded scholars who had mastered geothermal energy. Infrastructure. They had carved obsidian cities into the tectonic plates, using the Earth's natural heat to power quantum computers made of volcanic glass. The Zhao Shou's observation, Julian noted that they hadn't gone extinct in the traditional sense. They had fulfilled their planetary duty and uploaded their collective consciousness into the hypersphere's mantle. The mammalian and aquatic nexuses. Julian continued his descent, his PhD thesis glowing like a lantern in the deep time pressure. The professor's synthesis. Standing in the center of a bustling plaza of the great aquatic nexus, Julian watched as sentient, bioluminescent fish traded thought bubbles with land-dwelling mammals in a pressurized neutral zone. He realized that his human PhD was only a fraction of the truth. He began to draft a new, transcendent curriculum. He wasn't just teaching human history anymore. He was teaching the universal biology of duty. "We thought we were the first to reach for the stars," Julian wrote in his glowing floating journal. "But the birds got there first with spirit, the reptiles with stone, and the fish with song. We are merely the latest students in a very, very old classroom." By bridging these civilizations, Julian became the first interspecies chancellor of the hypersphere, uniting the memories of the scaled, the feathered, and the furred into one singular glorious